Welcome back to the Curate for Women Network. We once again have a guy sitting in our seat. Today we are with Ted James. Hey, Ted.
Hey, Vic. How you doing?
Good.
I'm happy to be here. You know how I've been a big fan of Curate, right?
Yes.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So for those of you who are not familiar with Ted, Ted is a former state representative. He is now our mayoral candidate for Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But I want to point out that this episode is not about Ted's mayoral candidacy.
That's correct.
All right. So, because I asked you to do this, we talked about this like over a year ago.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
I thought you had canceled me.
No, why would I cancel you?
I was waiting.
Oh, because, well, you know what's funny? When I learned that you were running for mayor, I was like, uh-oh. Like, what does this look like on the network? But it's cool because I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter because what you have been to Curate and to me, you have been a really good ally. I think that you have stood behind like what we have going on with Curate, and I really appreciate that. You were at last year's Curate conference.
Harper and I were there.
With your baby.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot of people who may watch this that know you, but this is more so for the people who don't know you. Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of add some texture and some color for the people who do know you.
And the people that think they know me.
And the people that think that they know you. Yeah. Okay, so I've heard you for some years now talk about all the women in your life that have cultivated this man that you are today. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Who are those women and what have they done that has caused you to be this human being that you are now?
You know, it's funny because my mother is so behind the scenes with everything, but my mom didn't work when I was growing up. She stopped working when I was in the third grade. So my mom was there every single day, right? I did not have a study partner in law school because I would have never had a better study partner than the one I had in my mom.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I have two sisters. I am my parents' only child together, right? My mother had my sister LaDonna, who my dad subsequently adopted, and my dad had a daughter, Crystal, who's my sister from his first marriage. And Crystal has never lived in Baton Rouge since 1981, right?
Oh, wow.
When she graduated high school. So both my sisters and I talk regularly. But my mom is the one that really has put the public service part in me. Most folks think it's my dad. But it was those conversations with my mom daily after school. My love for television is really my mom, right? She had me watching the Guidelight and all these different things after school. And my sister LaDonna is like the fashion one, right?
Yeah.
We're 9 years apart, so she was in high school making sure that her little brother was fresh growing up. And my sister Crystal is like the conscience, right? And she has helped the most with Harper as she has with her mom remarried. And my dad, of course, and her my dad and her mom divorced. So she has really been one that has kept me really structured as a father.
Mm-hmm. And so having such a close relationship with your mom, I think that has a lot to do with the general respect that you have for women and how you show up in spaces where you're able to advocate for them. I think that for a good part of your career, you were in a space where you were advocating for women. And so I don't necessarily get into politics because a lot of it, to be truly honest, I don't even understand how it works. Yeah. But there's a lot of men who make laws, who try to justify laws that are made that are totally against the actual needs of a woman. And so in your opinion, why is it important that you have a level of respect for women in order to advocate for them and make laws that like truly affect their lives?
You know, even before that, right? My career before politics, my first job was under Governor Blanco, the first female governor
Yes.
that this state has ever seen, right?
unicorn lady.
My second job, my director at the legislature when I was a staff attorney, Navonda Dobar, she was the first black woman to lead a staff of attorneys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for Cynthia Bridges, who's the only black woman to serve as the Secretary of Department of Revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So I have always worked under these powerful, glass shattering women in government, right? And have watched them navigate in spaces where the men tried to, and in a lot of instances, unfortunately, were successful in dictating what they can say, what they do, and then most importantly, decisions regarding their body and their healthcare, right? And for me, I always try to look at things through the lens of what my mother, what I would want for her, my sisters, and now Harper, right? And way too often in the legislative space, we have folks that are legislating regarding issues that they have no experiences dealing with. And of course, my family, just like many others, I have family members who have been raped, right? You know, by, you know, people that were supposed to protect them, right? I have, you know, a cousin who was almost raped, right? And being there and hearing these stories, they speak to you in a way that other folks may not admit, right? The type of experiences that have shaped them. But for me, the level of sensitivity that I have towards the issue regarding women was shaped by not just the people, but the experiences of the people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so crazy that you said this about your family and those situations that they've been in. Because I was actually having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was like, I don't think I know a woman who has not been sexually assaulted in any way. And it's so interesting that when we have to have these conversations, the people who they try to hold accountable for that is women. What were you doing? How did you get into that situation? And so I think what makes a difference is when there is a man, when there's a male voice in the room to say, no, this is the wrong perspective. Like, this is not how we should be looking at this. So going a little bit back to your childhood, your upbringing, middle school, high school, whatever, were you always one of those people that noticed a problem and tried to figure out a way to fix it? And is that how your career kind of landed in the place where it is now?
Yeah, it's funny. I went to school very close to where we are today, South Boulevard Elementary, and I was in the third grade. I remember this very vividly. And we had a substitute teacher. And you know, when you have a substitute, there are no rules, right?
Correct.
Everything is, out of the window. And our substitute teacher told us when we go to PE, we're not running laps. We're just going to play kickball. And I played soccer growing up, so kickball was my thing. I was not the basketball player, but kickball was my jam, right? Yeah. So we get down the hallway, and at South Boulevard, there's this very long stairwell. And a classmate of mine, Freddie Young, I have not seen Freddie since the 5th grade, but Freddie Young decided to slide down the rail, right? So when we get outside, our teacher says, oh, well, because Freddie slid down the rail, we're running laps. Now, she had already told us that we weren't running laps. And for me, my parents always told me, when you say something, you got to do what you say. So when everyone started running laps, I sat on the basketball court. Okay. And then other people started to sit. So Miss Farris, she asked the question, why are you all sitting? And in typical third grade fashion, all of my classmates pointed to me. Right. And they said, because Ted told us not to. And I said, well, I didn't tell them not to. I just told them that I wasn't. And my reasons were because you told us. And my father came to school. And my father, I was whipped at the school, in front of the third grade, in the office, and again when I got home. And my dad told me that night, he's like, you are a leader, right? And when you have an ability to lead, you have to lead people responsibly and recognize authority. And although the general rule is do what you say, there are exceptions to that rule, right? And it means when your teacher tells you to do something, you do it. And then the other rule is that golden rule, the good suffer for the bad.
Yeah.
And so we all had to run because of Freddie. And that was a hard lesson on my backside, right?
So it's, oh my gosh. But first of all, that's so old school for your daddy to come to the school and whoop you in front of, because you try that with Harper, you going to jail.
It's over. Yeah. It's over.
Yeah. And it's going to be all over the internet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, most people, they end up in politics because they knew from childhood, like, oh, I like this president. I look up to him. I want to do this. But then there's also the other side of this where people know that there's a need that the community has that only I can solve it and only in this position.
That's right.
And so there are so many people who I think have admired your growth and what you've been able to accomplish over the years. But now you are a father.
Yeah.
And so the public, you know, what they think of you at this point, I mean, it kind of matters because of what you're trying to accomplish, but nothing compares to what it is that your daughter thinks of you. And so let's rewind. Before Harper got here, you were married.
Yes.
You had the most beautiful wedding.
Storybook
like,
wedding.
Oh! I was looking like, you want to go get married again, Ross? Like, let's try to figure out how to make it look like this. So what was it that made you think that you were ready for marriage? And what did you learn while married? And then what were those lessons that you learned throughout the divorce?
Ironically, my parents have been married for 40 plus years and Veronica's parents as well, right? So we were both from this traditional, like, parents got married very early, you know, and stayed married, right? So for me, marriage was always something that I aspired because I saw my parents, right? And I saw very successful Black married couples. So it was not something that I ran from. And honestly, I had played a lot, right? I had enough playtime. And, you know, when I met, you know, Veronica, things just kind of took off, right? Very quickly. And people say, when you know, right? And I knew, right? And we made the decision. And of course, things didn't work out. But, you know, for me, it was a combination of growth, right? It was a combination of trying to, you know, merge who I was with who I wanted to become, right? And I always knew I wanted a family. I wanted children. And for me, you know, it was important to try to do it the right way, so to speak, right? So it really taught me about, you know, just a level of responsibility, right? And, you know, honestly, marriage is the one thing in my life that I failed at, right? And with Harper now, she's starting to ask all of these questions about, you know, I want my mommy and daddy to live together, and you know, and can we go to lunch, you know, and can we do these things, because at 6, she doesn't really remember a life when her mom and dad lived with each other, because we went our separate ways when she was 10 months. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that you said your parents were married for 40 plus years. Veronica's parents were married for 40 plus years. And in your mind, that's a successful marriage.
Well, on paper.
In hindsight, right. So in hindsight, what makes a successful marriage? What could have made your marriage successful?
You know, I think Neo has this song, right? We got to make it work. And Neo, I love Neo, right? Neo speaks to some real life relationship things, like the old Neo, not new Neo, right? But we got to make it work. He has, like, you know, sometimes the bad, always the good, but we got to make it work. And you have to want to make it work, and you have to work to making it work every single day, right? And I believe that for me, right, I was looking for something that I wasn't presenting, right? And, you know, you can't look for perfect if you aren't perfect yourself, right? And I believe that in relationships in general, we don't focus on the friendship element, right? You know, I have the same friends for the past 20 plus years, right? And we have never agreed on everything. We fuss, we fight, but as friends, we don't lose that. In relationships, I think we focus on the passion, the excitement, and not the friendship element, right?
And I think the fear comes when the passion is no longer there. And there's this unhealthy expectation that there should always be this flame in your marriage.
That's right.
And I think that you should always love your spouse, but I don't think realistically you don't always like.
That's 100%. And I can recognize that I'm hard to like sometimes, right? But that's 42-year-old Ted, right?
Oh, absolutely. It takes a long journey of like self-reflection and wanting to get to know yourself in a way that you can recognize that like, would I like myself if I was on the other side of this? I think that's really good. And so now that you're on the other side of marriage, your daughter, thank God, she wasn't old enough to experience a divorce from her parents, because I feel like that can lead to something way more detrimental for children mentally than we know that it could. Both ways. Like if you stay married for your kids, if you get divorced and your children are so married to y'all being married. But so now, what are those lessons that you're teaching Harper that, as you grow up, not necessarily as you're looking for a spouse, but what are those things that you're teaching her about herself that will then prepare her for her spouse?
One of the things that
she chooses to do
I had to stop saying to Harper, you're so pretty, right? And you're so smart, right? You're so brave, right? You're such a good person. You're so nice, right? And stop asking the general question, how was your day, right? That's easy, because she always says, it was fine. Like, what did you do? The same thing. So, for me, it's, what are you proud of, right, today, right? What inspired you today? Asking those questions that invite a conversation. And for me, it's trying to shower her with love so that she knows and she sees love. Like I had a very strong foundation in love from my parents, and it's important for me to try to shower Harper with those things. And honestly, it was hard, right? Harper was 10 months and trying to, and I hate to say do it on my own, because that takes away from her mother, right? So it wasn't doing it on my own, but doing it apart from her mom, right? Exactly. And trying to potty train, right? And most folks say you have to bring them to the bathroom with you. I can't bring Harper to the bathroom with me.
Oh my God.
So thank God her mother carried the load with potty training, and I was like excited. I was like, oh, Veronica, you got it, great.
Thank you.
Right? And with that, it was a challenge, at 10 months, trying to like basically, co-parent and do all those different things. But for me, it's the affirmations, and trying to be an active participant in the things that she wants to do. Right? I don't always want to play with Barbies, and she has gotten past that phase. And for me, it was when she had a Ken, and I actually fought against getting a Ken doll. I was like, I don't want the Ken doll. But as we were playing, like, Ken playfully opening the door to the car, Ken playfully setting the table, Ken pulling the chair out, all those different things that I tried to, show Harper the way that I want her to be treated, right?
Yes. Yeah. That is so interesting, the whole potty training a girl. It's so, because I'm married, so the things that we take for granted, I wouldn't even think while we're in public to tell Ross to take Cece to the bathroom.
Oh man, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
And so I've never even thought about that, like while he's by himself with the kids, like what does that even look like? Because right now Cece is potty training.
Look, there are very few like unisex bathrooms. So for me, it's bringing her into the men's room, and I've had to do that, and it's number one, making sure no one else is in there, right?
Because there's urinals before you even get to the closed stalls.
That's right, yeah. So it was very, very difficult, right?
Oh my God.
And for one, Harper is just like, do you got a potty before we leave the house? No, I'm fine. Yeah. As soon as we get there, she has to potty. And, now it's a little bit better, but before it was, bringing her, and then if we're in there and someone comes in and, very uncomfortable situation, right? But we made it through, right?
So let's talk about your village with Harper and the life that you live.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
to be quite honest, it's super busy. And I'm sure people ask you all the time, like, how are you balancing this?
Yeah.
Because you are everywhere.
Yes,
And
Harper hates
everywhere
to be
with her.
with me. Yeah,
Oh
she
my
hates
God.
the political stuff.
Yeah, she be looking real cringy.
Yeah.
Especially when you be like, come take a picture with me. And she'd be like,
She's not that. Yeah, she does not enjoy it at
so
all.
let's talk about your village
Yeah.
and the importance of having this huge support system to help you be the best dad that you can be, so that you can show up in these spaces and be the best public servant that you can be.
You know, it was honestly hard because I didn't like people telling me how to be a parent, right? And for me, it was, some folks say, oh, you're such a good dad. You don't really know that. You just see me, right? You see me. And, I used to get upset when women, mostly older, would say, oh, they see me with Harper, oh, you babysitting. I'm like, no, I'm parenting, right? And, I'm not babysitting. You wouldn't say that if she was with her mom. So I had to learn how to accept help. And, for the past 4 years, Brienne has really helped me because Brienne has a 16-year-old, so I got a bonus baby who's 16,
Yes.
so I see certain things through her. And, of course, I believe Veronica and I have a very healthy co-parenting relationship. It wasn't always easy, right?
Yes.
And again, I will concede that I'm not the easiest person to like, and I'm probably not the easiest person to get along with, right?
Yeah.
But, I have, cousins that kind of step in and help with Harper. We have developed a strong little relationship with play dates with some of, the other, daughters, girls at school. But for me, I had to learn how to accept help and advice from Brienne, my sister Crystal, my sister LaDonna, with number one, when we had separated, my sister was like, look, your father knows this better than anybody, right? And he had to deal with another man coming into the house. Yes. So you have seen it already, always be present and know when to, pull back and expect, certain things, but you have to give it first, right? Yes. So for me, it has always been, being just one that I am able to accept the advice, and that's not always easy, right? And so my village is comprised of, family, Brienne and Olivia, and her family, right? And we have, I have a lot of help in terms of navigating different things, right? In terms of, I try to be at the school a lot. I see your niece all the time, and going to lunch and there's different things. But my day doesn't end at 5 o'clock, right? Yes. And so it has always been folks that will help me keep an eye on Harper while I'm moving around.
Yes. Oh my gosh, your day does not end at 5 o'clock.
No.
Sometimes I long for the days when my day can end at 5 o'clock again.
Yeah.
I totally took those days for granted.
Yeah.
I don't think I really want to go back to that, but just the thought that
I would be bored and you would be bored.
Yeah. The thought. Yeah. Okay, so you are now dating. And so let's talk about it. What does that mean for you to now, this is a very serious relationship. Yeah. How does your baby feel about it? How does your family feel about it? And what is it about this woman that you're like, oh yeah, I gotta have you right here with me?
So, Harper loves her, right? And, she has really, she calls Olivia her sister, right? She tells the folks at the school, her teacher, she has a sibling. And, for me, I was very careful about when to introduce Harper, and honestly, I think Harper just thought that Brienne was my friend for the longest, right? Because, limiting affection in front of her, and now that Harper's 6, she sees, and, Brienne was one that can really, she is not as involved in all of the social stuff, right? So for her idea of a good time is working in her yard, right?
Yeah.
Trimming her hedges, right? Making sure the house is
clean.
And I am
girl.
the exact opposite, right? So, like a trip to Costco in her mind is a date, right?
Oh.
Like going to Costco to Brienne is a date, right?
And Target.
Yeah. Well, not she. Costco and Sam's. She's not a big Target person.
Okay, she's a true grown-up.
She got a real Costco car. So, and for me, like my idea is to go sit somewhere and have a drink, have food. So just being able to like ground me and hey, you got to sit down sometimes, right? You have to really invest in family for the time that you have, right? And you know, for me, that was never a thing because I was a mover, right? And so I wanted to just be on my own playing field, and you know, it's been great for Harper to see, you know, Olivia, and she feels like, you know, she has a real sister, right? And they have their own little language that they do, and they have their own little projects and things, and she has someone that I believe she looks up to, right? And that has been beneficial to me because there are things that, you know, Brianna said, don't do that with the little girl, right? You know, and having to balance, like, you know, for me, I want Harper to know that daddy's always going to be there, but I also want her to be able to do for herself. And that is one of the things that I admire most about Brianna, because she doesn't need me, right? I think she likes me being around sometimes, but she doesn't need me, right? And if something happened to me, she can step in. And I am truly like still confused about how to balance that with Harper, because I don't want to shelter her too much, but I also want her to know and have a level of expectation of what a man should be, right?
Well, the reality is that's your child, and I don't know if you'll ever get to, especially as your kids grow up, like, I don't think you'll ever get to a place where you're comfortable with them growing up, or if you're going to be comfortable with, like, taking your hands, not off, because I know that that's not your intentions, but it's going to be hard for you to not have like a super strong grip on her. So, but the beauty in all of that is, right, like, yes, you were married and divorced, but look how God uses even that to get his glory in the way that he has brought Brianna into your life, to give you that balance and that structure. Because sometimes, even though she is, you know, taking an active role in Harper's life, she's not her actual mom. So she gets to see things from a perspective that you and Veronica cannot see. And I like to say that, like, she can literally get those y'all's blind spots.
Yeah,
you know?
and the funny thing is, like, Olivia is 16. So she is like at the top of the mountain, and I'm way down here. So she's like, look, I've done that, right? Like, I've done it.
Like, let me help you.
Let me help. Let me help. But also sometimes she's like, you got it, because I've done it, right? Like, you got to figure it out. And for me, I like that leeway too, right? In order for me to better navigate, right? You know, and during the school week, you know, Olivia is a 4.0 student, speaks 4 languages. She's in the book during the week. So during the week, it's Harper and I. And now I have learned to, you know, not be too pushy, but, you know, we not watching TV all night, right? You know, there's some enrichment taking place at home, be it words, be it puzzles, be it these things, and those things that I can truly say I would not be pushing so hard on, but for, you know, seeing the young lady that Olivia has grown to be, right? And making sure that I am adding that and mixing in some fun and other things. But the enrichment piece is all from what I'm seeing from Brianna and Olivia.
Yeah. So I have a question. No pressure.
Uh-oh.
But just hearing you speak, I'm like, do you want to be married again? Is that something that you want to explore again?
I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, the great thing is,
no pressure. This is not a proposal.
No.
Okay.
And I believe that in relationships, we don't have those conversations with the people that we date often. And I have found a friend who we both feel the same, right? Like, if it happens, great. But we don't really need the paper to say anything out, right? And, you know, I'm not opposed to it, right? You know, there are some elements of being married that I absolutely miss, right? And, you know, some folks, even in what I'm pursuing now is, you're not married? You know, when are you going to get married again? And for me, and I know that there is this era of, like, there's a stability in it. And for me, I am very stable right now, right? And for me, we can go and push something for the appearance of stability, but I have it, right? And I enjoy it. So, you know, right now we just enjoying the moment, right?
That's because you're older, you're in a different place in life where you were just like, it's really not necessary to do this for me to believe in myself, for other
Yeah.
people to believe in me.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really
Now that
safe
was a tough
space to
lesson for
be.
Ted, right? Because as a lawyer, for people to hire you, they gotta like you, right?
Yeah.
For people to vote for you, they have to like you. And it really took some little therapy, reading, prayer for me to kind of divorce myself on what people thought, right?
Yes.
And
Oh,
even
that's good.
from the proposal to the marriage, and one of the things that I don't have a social media relationship anymore,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
did that. I did
Yeah.
that, and it's ironic when the pictures stopped being posted, people were like, "No, tell us the rest of the story, right?" And when you invite people to the beginning, people have an expectation. They want to know what happened, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm never gonna have a real
Yeah.
social media relationship again.
Well,
It just
good.
invites too much, and there are certain things that even with Harper, like there's a level of caution because I put her out there so much. And one day we ordered a waiter, and I don't know this lady that came to the door, and she's like, "Where's Harper?" And it freaked me out because I don't know
Yeah.
this lady, but
Yeah.
and I wasn't like I wasn't fearful, but it freaked me out because lady, I don't know you.
Right.
But you saw my face, and my name is not Ted on my waiter, right? So she was like, "Where's Harper?" And Harper was in a room like, "Hey, what is going on?" Right? And so I had to teach her.
Was that one of those moments? I'm sorry. Was that one of those moments where you realize that, like, oh, my life exists outside of my social bubble?
That's right. That's right.
And people know me.
Yep.
They know my child. That's the part that's scary.
Yeah, it is. And for me, it's people. And I like the fact that Harper is so reserved. Like even as many times as she's seen you,
Yes.
she got to warm up to you sometimes.
Yes.
And the fact that somebody can say, "Oh, hey, Harper," and she would run up to
Yeah.
them, right? I like that. And those are some real conversations that I have to have with her about strangers. And although someone may know your name and they may seem nice, it's mommy, it's daddy, it's family, and if you go somewhere with someone else, you're with them, right? Don't
Yeah.
go off with anybody else. Don't talk to, don't hug on people. And for me, it is challenging being in the public space, and now even with this current pursuit she's being thrust out there even more.
Yeah.
And some of it is nice and fun, but there is an element of fear for my daughter who's just 6.
Yeah, some people don't even consider because interesting enough, whether you're a public figure or not, if you follow somebody for so long, you have watched their child grow up on social media, and you have never met this kid, right? Like an adult can engage a total stranger who's like, "I know you," but a kid, I'm like, that is scary. Like Rossi, my son's video went viral, and I immediately made my page private, and I stopped posting about him on my page, and so Ross has completely like taken on the responsibility of of keeping people updated, because there are people who really want to know what's happening with him, and they genuinely love to see his joy. But for me, much like what you said, that is so scary. We were in a restaurant one day. Random, like it's not even a well-known restaurant. We were sitting in this restaurant, we were sitting in a booth. A woman heard Rossi's voice, and when I got up to go to the restroom, she said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, is that Rossi?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know he was from Baton Rouge. Can we please, can I meet him?" And and I was like, "That's cool, right?" And it's funny because I'm the one that's more outgoing. Ross is the one that's more reserved. But he has a different level of understanding of like how to protect Rossi while showing him, while showing people who he is. So I'm not even mad about you like breaking up with social media in a way that requires you to really keep people updated with your life. I actually think that is very responsible, because social media can also look like a reality TV show at times. And it's almost like, you ever seen a celebrity where you're like, dang, I could have gone my whole life without knowing
That's
you.
right.
It's like P. Diddy. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, dang, if celebrities still had the level of privacy that they had years before, they would be able to keep that integrity, and so.
There are many who I've unfollowed, right? It's like, I don't desire to see you know, what else you have going on.
Yeah, I
right?
don't care.
And, but to the kid part, you know, I saw something today with Steph and Riley Curry, and there was a picture of her from when I think it was 2016 and today, and it's like we've literally watched her become a teenager, and I don't know that little girl, right?
But what happens if you see her
if
and
I
you're like,
see her, I'm gonna get, you know, be
Yes,
excited. But
yes.
you know, I think that, you know, there was one instance where Veronica and Harper were in Target, and Brienne's brother-in-law, he's like 7 feet tall, 200 some pounds, and he goes up to Harper, and you know, Veronica was a little startled because like, who is this big old
this
dude
man?
like calling, you know, my daughter's name?
Yes.
So you know, it's you know, those things they're fearful, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you have
Yeah.
young people, yeah.
So now, as you transition into this new phase of your life, what are some of the things that you think about if for some reason, and I know I said that we would not talk about this, but but to get to know you, I think there's some things that we just have to understand for context. What in your city that you grew up in, that you love so much, what are those holes, like what are those gaps that are missing that you feel like only you can do in this position that you're vying for?
You know, it's not that only I can do it, right? There are things that I believe I can set into motion, right, with the right team to just move Baton Rouge and just this region forward, right? And this is very ironic. We need more women in leadership positions, right? And I can say that, right? And I have worked for them. I have pushed them, and I think it goes back to, you know, just your whole idea around Curate. There is a level of sensitivity that should be brought to issues. There is a level of experience that should be brought to issues that only women bring to the table. So the more diverse those voices are, you know, the better the outcomes are, in my opinion, right? Now, I'm not saying that every single time you have to support a person because of their gender, where they went to school, all those different things. But I can concede that the legislature now, it does not look like it because of the issues, right? Like the fact that Harper is living in a world with fewer rights than you had when you were born, than my mother, right? It is depressing and sad, crazy. Even though we are still growing in the number of women that are serving in the legislature, right? But, you know, just the sensitivities around just, you know, in the workplace, right? You know, for me, if I show up at different political events with Harper, right? And people, oh, it's so cute, right? If I were a woman showing up with my daughter, folks would, you know, she couldn't find a babysitter, you know, or like, why is she bringing? Like they would criticize it, in my opinion, right? There would be a level of expectation that, you know, oh, she's a single mother, but why couldn't she find something else to do, right? Where's her mom, right? Where's her spouse, right? And for me, it's like I show up, oh, it's just so cute because he had Harper there. But, you know, for women, I've heard it and I've seen it, and it's been criticized, right? And it's unfair, but it speaks to the need for Curate, right?
Yeah, it also speaks to the need to have men to be able to say what you just said, to validate the importance of that. I think women sometimes, without knowing it, we can take our own voices away. We can shrink ourselves based on things that men have historically just kind of placed on us in this like super patriarchal world. And it's like, no, we have a say in this, right? We have power in being able to adjust and change. Like it's literally, as the world is evolving, it's very strange that women are stuck with, like you said, with so many women in leadership. And there's not enough men who are in leadership that are speaking truth to that power.
Yeah, I think that there are way too many of us that believe that when you elevate the power of a woman, you dissipate the power of a man. And for me, especially in our community, right, we have always been our best when we have been together, right? So for me, I know Black males in political spaces that cringe at in Alabama when, you know, Black women helped elect the first Democratic senator. You know, there were men that cringe when, you know, news media talked about just how Black women stood up. And for me, that didn't make me mad. It was like, high five.
Yes.
And brothers, what we gonna do, right?
Yes.
Like, how are we gonna add value to that? And for me, I didn't hear that, oh, black men, you were absent.
Yes.
I heard that a society that has, in a space where our women were the ones that were, raped and abused and separated from their families. And then folks just ignored that, right?
Yeah.
They ignored that it happened. So black women were the last to get rights, right? Women's suffrage, that was for white women, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't for you, right?
Yes.
So now that you're seeing black women in spaces, it doesn't intimidate me.
Right.
It inspires me, number one, as a girl dad, because I can point to, folks and say, like, hey, Harper, like, even in this race that I'm in now, right? Harper gets excited when
Yes.
she sees the man,
Yes.
right? And so, but the fact that she can see more of that and she knows how important it is for her, even in the face of, still, right? As you all are continuing to climb, there are people that are working extremely hard to try to, pull you back into the past.
Yes. Right? Yeah. And I think, to your point, perspective matters and representation matters. So you have to have all of it. An ecosystem in any environment it's only healthy when it's balanced.
That's right.
And so to just say that only men can make decisions is just insane. But to think that only women can do it is also insane. And to think that, and I'm not saying this in any way, like most of the strong lessons that I've learned in life came from my dad, came from my brothers, mostly came from my grandfather, who is no longer with us. But I think that there is this misconception that people have, not just men or women, that it takes a man to bring this power. But I think that with men being in positions that you're in, being in positions that my husband is in, being able to kind of speak to the needs of a woman, it's not that we need that, but it certainly amplifies what it is that we're trying to do. And it matters for children who are growing up, boys and girls. It is important for men, for little boys, to see women in leadership. I think it's important for little boys to learn very early on how to advocate for women. Because if you think about it, in your household, we know what happens when a man is not present. But what happens when a woman isn't present? You lack empathy. Even if you have sympathy for a situation, there's that sympathetic nature there, but only because you can't see yourself in it. And that's the difference. And that is the difference.
There's a nurturing that is only present in women, right?
Yes.
And for me, like with Harper, there are times when I just got to shut up because I know that I don't have the right thing to say, right? And it's me calling my mom, me calling Brienne, me calling somebody to say, look, Harper did this. I need to be able to kind of level set, and I know as a man, I can't do it right now, right? Because my inclination is, and I have to remind myself that Harper, Ted, she's not a boy, right? She's not a boy, right? Even in sports, right? It's Daryl Hurst, he and I were talking about after one of Harper's games and soccer game, and they had gotten beat really bad. And Harper was like, well, did we win? And I was like, well, Harper, you did a good job. And she was like, no, tell her she lost.
You lost.
Right? And so now I'm like, nope, you lost. And it was bad. But you did much better, right? And I saw the improvement, but you lost, right? And so having that level of honesty and empathy at the same time, it's funny, as Shan was saying, she was like, And when I heard her say it, I was like, all right, if Mama is saying it, then I'm on the right track. But, and those things, even in, the political realm, and, I think that although you don't need to hear how special you are, because it's the reinforcement, right? You're dating someone, you don't need to hear that you're beautiful all the time, but it helps, right? And it could be one of those days where we don't know, right? We don't know if the hair isn't laying right? And you may think that it looks really bad, but to me, I'm like, oh, you got your hair done, right? You ate, like the young people say, you ate, right? So I got it from Olivia told me that. So it's like, and you never know when that can come at a time when somebody is feeling like at their not lowest, but they need that motivation.
Yeah.
And in the political space, like for me, it was always, hey, this might be my idea, but why don't you lead on this issue, right? And in the workplace, why don't you lead this project? Why don't you make the presentation? When I worked at the SBA, I had the opportunity to bring on, 2 new division directors out of the 10, and both of them were women and women of color, because I thought it was important to bring, black woman to Arkansas to lead the SBA, and a Hispanic woman in Oklahoma to lead the SBA, right? And we have more of the 10 women in power than at ever, any point in the region's history, right? And I think that says something to the administration, but it also says something to the folks that we are servicing. As the when you look at the growing number of entrepreneurs, they're women.
Yep.
And they're women of color, right? And you are forced to go into these spaces where you are seeking capital, right? And the tellers, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble. Maybe the tellers are women, but the folks that are making the decision about your line of credit or that capital most likely is a white man,
Yes.
right? Out there making that decision. So even in that space, it's how do we elevate folks? And for me, I'm always intentional. Take this project, take this application to the woman at the bank and let her be the one to usher you through the process, right? And that says that, she's bringing in new clientele. It shows that she deserves a seat at the table. And you all are much better about kicking down the door and making sure you bring in another woman, right?
Yes.
For us, men, we kick down the door and just sit down for a little bit,
Yeah.
and we enjoy it for a little bit, and way too often we get comfortable being the only one, right? But you all are making sure you coming in 2, 3, or 4, right? And so the more we open up those doors and give those opportunities, and I heard that a lot, at the Curate conference, right? With Erica, who I worked with, like Erica McConduit was my boss at the Urban League, right?
Yes.
And I still have videos on my phone recording her giving speeches because she just was so dynamic even then, right? And Crystal, I want to be her friend. Like I always I shot my shot at her to be her friend, right? Because I shot
She
my
married.
friend. Yeah, she's married.
Yes.
I shot my friendship shot, and I was like, hey, I see you, right? And you are doing amazing things, and I just want to be a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of those women that you named truly embodies what it means to be a phenomenal woman.
Most definitely.
Like in all aspects, reaching back and pulling these girlfriends forward, whether you are on paper qualified or whether I see where you're going, right? I see you more than you see you. Both of those women have certainly been that for me.
And let me say this, and I hate to stop you, but on paper qualified, that's great. But for women, men sometimes not on paper qualified, right?
True.
So that's great. But even if on paper you are not, sometimes it's the opportunity and the opening of the door.
That is it.
And we can't feel like we aren't ready because on paper, right? Because for me and men, like it's a lot of things that on paper, but we're gonna get the opportunity, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 3 things, and this will be our 3 things to wrap this up. When you, speaking of phenomenal women, in your mind, in your opinion, when can you immediately recognize when a woman is walking in her power?
It depends, right? It may be that woman that decided to, although it was difficult, right? I'm gonna walk out this relationship, right? And I am going to, take on the challenge of being a single mother, right? If it's, in the entrepreneurial space, it's I am going to quit that comfortable job and I am going to walk into this entrepreneurial thing and take a chance on myself, right? I see that as a woman truly walking into their power. I see it down at the Capitol where women are taking advantage of opportunities to lead on different things, be it at the Capitol. I see that as walking into, a purpose of being that phenomenal woman. And honestly, I see it with the room moms at the school, right? And that has absolutely nothing to do with, being political or entrepreneurial. It's, I am going to walk into this situation and help all of us out, right? I get, I'm always texting the room mom like, thank you, because you're phenomenal to me, because like I forgot about all these different things that were taking place, at the school. And, Arian Simone, right, with the Fearless Fund, and, people, she has gotten popular now because of the fact that folks are, there's an assault on what she's doing in terms of trying to provide capital to women of color.
Yes.
I was blessed to know her even before this in the space, right? Yes. Phenomenal in that she ain't taking the fight laying down, right? Yes. And it's like, she is the fighting against the Supreme Court of the United States, right? Like walking into her purpose, right? Yes. Yeah.
And look at the voices that are surrounding them. Arian and Ayanna.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Look at Attorney Crump, who is right there with them. That like I cannot benefit from what they're doing at all, but I am telling you that women need this, and our economy needs this. And so I love that you use them, that you said that, as an example to show how women can be doing something so powerful, but still need men to validate the importance of the work that they're doing and the impact that it has when the work is done right. Love that. How could you encourage other men, men who look like you and otherwise, to show up as allies for women, whether they can benefit from what they're doing or not?
Ooh, man. And that's the part, right? Like we have to just show up in general, regardless of whether it's a personal benefit. But for me, I'm always one that tries to appeal to the heart. Yeah. So every man has one thing in common. They got a mama, right? And a grandmama, right? Yep. And if they're a girl, dad, you can appeal right here. But for me, I think that it's, recognizing for a man, right, that we are only as strong as the women that are in front of us.
Come on,
right,
say the things.
On side of us, right, and even those that are coming up behind us. And when I say coming up behind us, I'm talking about the little babies, right? I'm not talking about, our peers, because I consider us together, right? And it doesn't take away from who you are to elevate, right? Yeah. And, when you see anybody getting attacked, you should feel something. And as much as we are seeing Black women rise, we still need to show up there. And most folks, I am, really good friends with the Vice President of the United States. She gets criticized more than any three people I know in politics, right?
By women and men.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that on another episode. But for me, it's like reminding folks, this is not just a criticism on her, right? Like even the conversations about Joe Biden's age, that's code for if we elect him again and something happens to him, we're gonna have this Black woman as the president, right? And that's the code in it, right? And we're falling into it. Like friends that I know, Black males, and they get into it and like, hey man, this ain't about him. This is about this notion to try to say, oh, we better be fearful because if something happened to him, we're gonna be led by this Black woman. And for me, it's you have to really be able to just be confident enough in yourself to speak up, right?
Yeah. Look at the bitterness that comes behind women who are not supported.
Yeah.
Look at the bitterness that comes behind women who have not experienced love personally or experienced love behind the work that they're doing. But then also look at the nurturing and how well they're able to do their job when they have allies and they have people who believe in them. They're able to show up stronger, but they're able to show up softer. So they make themselves more palatable for everybody who needs all the things that they have to offer. And I think that everybody has a job in showing up in crucial moments in people's lives when they're doing work that affects the masses.
Yeah. Even so, a friend of mine in the legislature, Paula Davis, right? Paula has all of the credentials. She should be the Speaker of the House right now in the legislature. If Paula was Paul, she probably would be, right? You know,
Absolutely.
she chaired one of the most powerful committees in the legislature, and just, you know, the Commerce Committee, and having to defend just the choice, you know, and for the previous speaker to have put her there. And it's not, you know, and I know Curate is colorblind, right?
Yes.
And so the issues that are impacting, you know, women, I saw your conference. It was one of the most diverse things that I've ever seen. And it was ironic because it was a Sunday, right? Wasn't it a Sunday? And most folks say that Sunday is the most divided that we are as a society because people don't worship together.
Yes.
Not at Curate, right?
Yes.
And the issues are, you know, they're different levels, right, for women of color, but it's the same. It's the same type of discrimination. And when, you know, I attempted to, in this whole abortion debate, one of the things when I was pushing for like the exceptions, one of the things that I said, I'm not man enough to make this decision for a woman.
Come on.
And for me, when some of my colleagues that voted against me showed me text messages that their wives sent, like, why don't you think like that? Or why don't you say it, right?
Yes.
And we gotta be able to speak up, you know.
Oh my gosh, that is a totally different episode.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me to watch men even think that they're strong enough to make those decisions. But it's also even crazier to me when a woman doesn't have the courage to actually speak to the heart of what that matter is. And to not be an ally to women, is insane to me. But, you know, I feel like, does a woman really truly think that in her heart that women should have those types of rights taken from them? No. But what they're doing is they're trying to make themselves allies to these men who have the power. And if we just had more men to truly understand the thought of empathy versus sympathy. Empathy truly embodies the thought that, like, I feel this pain for you. Even though I've never experienced this, I feel this on a level of what happens if my daughter is faced with this situation? What happens, you know, whether you have a daughter or not, what happens if my mom is faced with this situation?
Oh, my wife.
My wife.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that's a deep, deep thought, because a lot of men don't respect their wives. That is the true reality of all of that. I have been, you know, I have been very blessed to have experienced a husband who sees Victoria, but he's also my friend. So that's a totally different, but a lot of these men not friends with their wives, so they can't empathize with them. But if you can't empathize with her, like you said,
you can't empathize with your daughter either.
You can't empathize with your daughter. And this is so true. And oh Lord, you know, that's a...
You just, you know, there's no one without the other.
Yes.
Right? And I think some of them are just not honest enough, right? Because in this debate, a lot of it concerns, you know, not their religious beliefs, but their means. So they know if it is their daughter, their wife, they have means to, if it's not Louisiana, they could get to wherever they need to be, right? And for me, I'm just honest enough to say, like, if it's Harper Ryan James, I don't care what the law of Louisiana is. It's gonna be a decision between Harper, her doctors, her mama, and her daddy, right? And I'm bold enough to say it, and I think other people believe it, but they just won't say it out loud, you know, especially if she's raped, you know, and you know, it's just the government shouldn't be making those kind of decisions. But
regardless, we should not even have to justify what a woman decides to do with her body because she was violated. Perhaps she violated herself and thought, I should have thought better. I should have been more responsible. Either way, that's not that's not anybody's call to make, right? But last question. Thinking of your younger self and who you are today, what's something that you would say to young Ted that would have erased a lot of the heartache that you've endured?
You know, I would have, you know, tried to force young Ted to mature a lot earlier, right? I have never tried to be a perfect man. I like Neo again. I just want to be a good man, right? And for me, it was. I always felt like this thing inside of me, this leadership thing, right? But I let the play get ahead of that, sometimes. And I would have told young Ted, like, you are young, but you don't have a lot of time,
Yes.
right? And you
Maybe
you
because these
have-
grades come real quick.
Yeah, man, you see them. Yeah, and it's like you are young, but you do not have a lot of time.
Yeah.
So erase a lot of the play to get to, your purpose, right? And, I got a lot of titles, right? But the impact could have been much greater, right? Like, we might not be having this conversation about me as a candidate right now if the maturity had gotten there earlier, right? Because this phase may have already been behind me, right? And I could be doing, on to something else, right? And for me, that's a level of conversation that we've been having with men all of the time, right? And, things seem like fun and exciting, but they aren't, right? And the consequences of certain things are, it takes a long time to get out of something, right? And a short time to get in it, right? And, young Ted, I would have said, brother, you got to grow up a little bit faster, right? And for people that know me, they probably say, well, you probably need to say that to yourself now, but, and there are, just so many, like, for me, most of the people that you've had on, Curate, right? From Wendy, to, Donica and all of these people who, are, constantly folks that I call and ask for advice, ask for help, right? As a man, I ask for help, right? And so this platform, right, is, I probably would have told young Ted to go find whatever type of platform was the Curate at Southern, right? And pour into it, right? Or the Curate at Southern Law School, pour into it. Or push some type of, more policies to add, into, some of what, you all through, your series and through, the people that you pour into, right? Because this is a ministry for you, I think, know. And even when the tables were turned, right? And you on the other side of the red table, right? That was probably my favorite episode.
Oh yes, me too. Me too.
And Wendy's hard, man.
Wendy, I think if it wasn't for the conversation that I had with Wendy, I don't think I ever would have flipped those tables on me. I really trusted her to execute that in a way that didn't leave me naked. I mean, I still felt very vulnerable, but I felt comfortable sharing my story with her in a way that I have never shared with. There were people who knew me from like childhood that watched that and they were like, Victoria, that is, I mean, anyways. So, and I also lied because I'm going to wrap this up with one more question from you. You have forgiven yourself from the playful, for the lengthy play. What do you say to people who have watched you play for so long that they're now doubting your maturity?
I will tell them that even in my play, right, I was able to, with help, right, move the needle on so many different things. And even in, today, I take my work serious, but I don't take myself so seriously to where I can't have fun. Like, I'm gonna throw a joke in, I'm not gonna, say anything maliciously. But, for me, I am at a point where it's time to elevate, to another level, right? As a man, as a leader, as a father, right? And for me, that's the most important thing. And people say it, but Harper being born was like, and I keep this, you all think I'm playing about Neo, but this, the best thing
at this point, I think you have really disappointed this guy.
No, the best thing I never knew I needed, right? That song from Princess and the Frog, right? That song puts Harper to sleep. But it is truly, like, for me, but for Harper, right, I probably wouldn't even be serious enough to even sit down with you and have this conversation, talking about, my marriage and divorce, and, how, the development and maturity, for me, it's been a process, right? Ted has gone to therapy, right? I done paid a lot of money to try to get myself right, right?
It's necessary.
Most definitely.
It
And
is.
black men,
Listen,
hey,
I never want mental health to turn into a buzzword, and I think that people use it so carelessly. But I never,
agree.
ever want that to turn into a buzzword, because it is so important.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Thank you.
so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Look.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victoria.
Like I said, y'all, we had this conversation like almost 2 years ago. I didn't even think that men were engaged with Curate whatsoever.
We've been watching.
Yes, I've met so many men that are like, Curate is like therapy for me, and I'm like, oh, good.
It's Ross. People like to see, like, Ross is like the Baton Rouge Russell Wilson. Like, people see him like pouring into you, and it's most people feel like men don't really want to be on the same level, on a lower level of their spouse, and that's the flex, right? Like, that's the flex, right? Being where your woman can just stand, and you can stand in, and just and people watch. So when I saw Ross all excited, and I was like, I gotta check it out.
Yes, thank you. And to your point, Ross has since day one been that for me. He has always seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, and because of him and his encouragement and like pushing me more to do what I do privately, Curate has been able to be a platform that I think has definitely been a good outlet for a lot of people.
Yeah. We looking forward to seeing where you go.
Yay! So thank y'all so much for tuning in again. I will add all information about Mr. Ted James, of where you can find him and keep up with him and Harper and the work that he's doing in and out of Baton Rouge and Louisiana in general. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate you.
Yay! Bye!